Welcome to Rooted in Reality, real conversations with real people about life, alignment, and what we're actually moving through. I am Nicole Marie, and this is not a formal interview. It's a guided conversation where we explore where you are in real time. So please join me in welcoming Stanley Fisher. Stanley, I'd love to just jump right in.
Let's do
How would
it.
you describe the season of life you are in right now? What's been present for you lately?
What's been present for me lately is a certain amount of authority that's been showing up because I'm coming out of a 5 year cycle where I watched my mother die from Parkinson's and dementia. That was a direct result of a 40-year drug addiction. And last year, she died last April, April 22nd. And I went through like a 90-day, like, where am I phase. And then I started coming out of it. My energy started slowly coming back. Went through the grieving process that hit pretty hard over the holidays. And now we're ending the first quarter of this year. And my healing journey has led me to a place where I'm very authentically myself because something left me when she died.
Mm.
And whatever trauma she was dealing with was a part of us as well. It dictated a lot of our lives. It influenced good and bad things. And I can say that when she died, that part of me died with her. And I'm getting used to this new version of myself. And from it, I am living a life I don't recognize because of all the work I did to have no unfinished business with her.
So, in
Uh,
that life you don't recognize, what does it look like day to day for you right now?
it's hard to describe because it's an energetic feeling that I have that I've never noticed before.
Okay.
But I think the best way for me to describe it is I think I know who I really am now because I think in order to be as present, honest, direct, aware of who and what is going on, I, I, well, I can answer this actually. I know who I am through my values because I had to learn my values on some level to survive watching my mother die,
Mm, yeah.
watching her wilt away and cleaning up the relationship between her and I because in her drug addiction, she robbed me at one point of a music collection that I had. And most people are like, oh, it's just a music collection. But I had one of the highest rated radio mix shows in US history on a radio station in Orlando called XL 106.7. It was
Mhm.
something I started when I was 12. And her, I left my music at her house while I was transitioning. And when I went back to get it, she had pawned it for drug money.
Wow.
And a lot of people be like, it's just a music collection, but this was stuff I created. This was stuff that I purchased through very specific channels that you can't go and buy again. It
Mm,
isn't like you can't go onto Amazon Music and get what I had. And when she robbed me, the betrayal that I experienced put such a trust belief in me that I've had a wall up ever since. And I've
mm,
been protecting myself from her my whole life because of how toxic she was.
mm,
And at the same time, my mother was my best friend. It was really difficult for me to also throw a wall up because it wasn't true for me either. And I had
mm,
to learn during those 5 years while she was sick and dying, my end result was to have no unfinished business with her. And what that looked like was it was coming to terms with things that I was angry about, disappointed, telling her the things I loved about our time together and our life. And I wanted to experience some sort of dignity between us before she left. And then when she actually died, and I, I remember the first day of her being gone, something had left,
mm,
not just with her, but with inside myself, and finding my way here. If it wasn't for my values, I don't know where I'd be today because I think I would be lost in my thoughts and feelings and the way I process things. I typically go aloof at times and I withdraw, but because I know who I am and I know how I deal with things. I just pulled my energy back and just waited for the right time to start being present to the world again and just move the energy on the things I needed. And what's happened and where I'm at today is I'm only sleeping like 5 to 6 hours at best at night. I'm getting so much work done. There's so much movement, and I feel like I just recently blossomed into a new flower, is the
mm.
way I'm describing it to people. I feel like I've opened back up to the world, but this version of me is completely different. But and what's weird about it is like this is who I always was. It was just
Yeah.
caked underneath layers of posturing
Mm,
to feel safe in the world, to protect myself. And I don't have to do that because one of the corner building stone blocks of my life, my mother, isn't here for me to be defensive or worry that she's going to die from one day to the next. And to give people an idea of what that means is in 2023, as we were going through that 5 year process, she tried to commit suicide like 7 times that I'm aware of. And every time that she would go through that, the emotional aspect of it was so raw and awful. I had to learn not to take it personal. I had to, like, what am I making this mean about me? That whatever she's going through, why am I hurting myself to something I
Yeah.
don't have control over outside of me? So I went in, and if it wasn't for my values, I don't think I would have survived it being a victim like I was that she taught me to be. And I died to that identity while she died. So
Wow. So what do you feel most connected to in your three-dimensional world fight, four-dimensional fight? Like what do you feel most connected to right now in your
my
life?
heart,
Your heart.
like my heart's right away. I work really hard to stay grounded. I spend most of my day meditating. I check in with myself. But in order to survive all this, I had to be very diligent in my practice to be committed to tapping into that mode of awareness on a regular basis. So that way my ego didn't latch on to things outside of me or give a narrative to be a victim and to suffer. So I'm very diligent about letting my heart lead everything I do in a way that I've never seen before because I had to die to the wishy-washy identity. I had to be really buttoned up, and now because I've done it so much in such an intense way, it's become a permanent fixture of who I am now.
So what feels like it's shifting or changing now in this new flowery blossom version of you?
That's a really good question. Let me ask this: is there another way you can ask me that question?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's do it like this. So what's shifting in your external world because of this new?
um so my hometown of Ocoee, Florida, which isn't far from where you're at, um it's right outside Orlando, Florida, by like 13 miles. It's where I grew up. They have contracted me to host one of their big street festivals. It's the first time I've done this in 20 years. And I I was asked what am I resistant to at the beginning of the year, and I was resistant going into that town because that's where all the bad memories are.
Mm,
I go there and I can remember, the actual location where this street festival is going to be at, that I'm going to be DJing and hosting, is right where it all began for me at 12 years old. So to see these buildings, to see like the building that's in walkable distance to where this is going to be at is the building my mom and dad got married in. There's a lot of meaning associated with the city, and it's the same city where people helped supply my mom with drugs and helped destroy our family, destroy her. And so I have a lot of thoughts and feelings and unresolved tension and storytelling. And when it was brought to my attention, I was resistant to it. I noticed it was the only city in the only part of Orlando that I wasn't visiting, and I wasn't able to get any of my businesses to work. I haven't been able to get people to follow through. And then I go there and I got out of my resistance, went down to the city to talk to them about possibly repartnering from where I used to do this stuff in my, teens and 20s, and then I moved away. Um, and the guy I had to talk to was my childhood bully, and yeah, it was so serendipitous, right? So here I am talking. I was like, they gave me the business card. They're like, this is the gentleman you're going to speak to. I started laughing, and I was like,
of course it is.
the lady goes, what are you laughing at? And I was like, this was my childhood bully. And she gave me a weird look because she's like, there's going to be a problem, is there? And one of the reasons she was looking at me that way is because he's the son of the mayor of Ocoee. And so it's very touchy subjects. And so I told her, I was like, it ain't going to be a problem for me. And she goes, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, if you're thinking I'm going to do something, I was like, the only thing I'm going to do is clean up the relationship. I said, I'm on a mission to have no unfinished business with everybody I know and myself. And she was just like, okay. And I called him as soon as I left the building. I called him and he answered. And he actually kind of choked on his drink when he found out who I was. And I'm not lying, he really did. And he knows my dad. The city knows my dad really well. And I just told him, I said, I'm working on something and I want to know if we can sit down and talk. And he was like, sure. And I went down the next morning, and sat with him and talked to him for a full hour and showed him everything that I'm doing through my business and my life. And I said, I really want to bring a music festival to this city and push back against the narrative that I grew up around, because you guys don't really know what happened, what I was going through, what the family was going through. But on some level, I do know you know. And I said, a great way for me to demonstrate what it means to have no unfinished business, I told him, I said, I'm just going to practice it on you right now. And I said, Mark, I owe you an apology. And he's like, for what? And I was like, well, the last time I saw you, I tried to get you to fight me. And I said some pretty off-putting things. And I said those things to you. And this, I was like 21 at the time. I said those things to you because um, I got to be honest with you. You were kind of an ass to me growing up. You weren't really nice. You bullied me, and I got to be honest with you. I'm not your biggest fan. And I said, but I'm not here to have a go at you. I'm not here to make it weird. I want to clean up our no unfinished business between us because I'd like to believe you're a good person. Your dad's a good man. You have a good family. You're big about supporting the community. And I'm sorry for how I treated you that night. You didn't deserve it, on not entirely. You did deserve some of it. Your wife didn't deserve it. It was embarrassing. It's not my better side. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for what I did. And he just looked at me. He's like, I'm sorry too. And we had kind of like, we've turned this relationship wholly from where instead of being stubborn and holding on to the victim posture, I went in and set the pace to change the narrative, not only for myself, but here I am impacting this guy and the family. And now the families are coming together. My dad and his dad, we're all going to get together and hang out here soon. And I'm seeing such movement in this direction that I believe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I put all of it together with everything that I'm being driven by, it isn't just about music. It's about bringing a narrative to this city that, you know, you've got to be honest with yourself and honest with other people. And if you really want to wipe your hands clean and have a clean relationship with somebody, you've got to speak heart to heart and direct and compassionate with one another, and do the work that most people don't do, because a lot of people die and leave without cleaning up those relationships. And then not only are you dealing with grieving after the person dies, you're also dealing with the anger of all the unsaid things that you wish you would have said to somebody.
Yeah.
And I
Uh,
learned that from my mother. And then we had a cousin that passed away 7 weeks after my mom died, and everyone's angry because he committed suicide and nobody got to say anything.
mm,
And I can see the impact of what it means to hold all that in and not say anything. It's destroying parts of my family and their thoughts and feelings and victim. And I don't want to live like that anymore. And I want to push back against the narrative of my hometown and the world and do something that brings light to this crazy world we live in.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Ooh, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So where in your life right now, as you're going on this journey of having like no unfinished business, what feels really solid and really grounded for you?
My relationship with myself,
Yeah.
it's the best answer I can give you. I mean, there's all these other things that are probably a little bit more superficial. But what I realized over the holiday break is that when you work to have no unfinished business with someone you love who's dying, and then you turn around and to have no unfinished business with people in your life because you never know when they're going to die, because that's what my cousin taught me when he committed suicide, is that every day you want to talk to people and get the things off your chest, um, because if you don't, you never know when they're gone. And then when the holidays hit, I started realizing that the reason you want to have no unfinished business with other people is because your end game is to have no unfinished business with yourself before you die.
Mm. And so where do you feel like things may be a little off or out of sync right now?
My financial situation is not really great because I took a hit since the pandemic with my business. I lost probably about a at during the pandemic, I lost about 60% of my income. And then watching my mom die, I lost a little bit more. And then I went through a split. At the same time, we were putting mom into a nursing home. I caught my ex cheating on me at the same time. So I had to deal with those emotions. And when you start stacking those things, it's really hard to be a magnetic person to build business, to
Mm.
build a network, to have the energy to let people in. And even though I kept things moving, even though I served people and I didn't really lose too much, the stuff that I lost was just stuff I couldn't control. I've been able to live a sustainable life. Nothing's really wrong, but there's a life I want to be living that I'm denying myself. And it's because I'm doing the best I can in this crazy world that we live in. So the more I go inward and sit with myself the more I know that my outer world is about to explode. And I really think that this street festival I'm about to host is going to be the big marker that's going to move everything, because I can see all of it starting to move now.
Yeah.
The timing is perfect because it's almost the 1 year mark since my mom died.
Yeah. And so
So
what's been taking up so much space in your mind lately?
what I love about my life,
Yeah. And which
I,
would there.
I get up every morning, and I've been trying to teach this to a few people that don't like taking responsibility for themselves. But when I wake up in the morning, I don't just open up my phone. I don't read emails. I make a pot of coffee and I go sit on the porch and I tune into my heart and I spend at least an hour. Some people would call it meditation. I tend to call it a little bit more around having a functional imagination around how I want to create my day and what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and how I'm going to show up to people. And what I do is I start setting the pace immediately during the day. It's my time to set the pace from how my day is going to go. I ask myself, where am I? Like, how am I feeling today? Am I off? What does that mean? And I kick all those thoughts out and I move in the direction of the end result of how I'm going to effectively show up for the day. And I
Mm.
circle it until I'm completely aware of who I am and how I'm going to impact the people that I'm going to meet during the day. And that really has changed a lot for me.
Is there anything that you feel like you're rethinking or outgrowing?
There's some unfinished business with little things, but the only reason that stuff comes up is because I'm not where I want to be in my life.
Okay.
And I know that once these things start to move, and when I sit in a healthy imagination connected to my true spirit, my heart, when I get out of the nonsense of my ego and I can see the vision of where I'm going, it's just a matter of time before all those superficial, those external things start to shift and different people show up, and the money, the houses, the opportunities, the new clients for your business, a love relationship, all that stuff's going to come flooding in here soon.
Yeah.
But not right now.
Right.
Right now is about serving me and setting the pace within myself.
Yeah.
So I'm setting the pace outside myself, and the response that I'm getting from people notice it. People are really noticing it, and I'm just about what the way I'm speaking is the world's about to find out who I really am.
Yeah.
Is what I keep saying to people. I'm like, you guys are about to find out who I really am,
Yeah.
and that's because I'm about to find out who I really am.
Live time. We're learning this live time. I want to shift us a little bit, and I
Yeah.
want, we went into what you're thinking, and we explored, your imagination and the beautiful place that gets to be for you now. But now I want to go into feeling. What have you been feeling? Like, what feelings have been coming up lately? What is that? What is that water like? Like, is it smooth? Is it choppy? Like, what's coming up in the feelings?
So I've noticed since like October, I've been coming back to myself. And so it's been bumpy. It was really bumpy those first couple months after, well, the first couple months after mom died, I was kind of non-existent. But around October, I would have this burst of energy and it would drop off. And I'd have a burst of energy and it would drop off. And I was like, what is this? It feels manic. I feel like I'm all over the place. And I started realizing I'm pendulum swinging, is what it is. 1 minute I'm in my heart, next minute I'm in my fear, next minute I'm in my anger, next minute I'm in my joy. And I started realizing, I was like, oh, it's because I'm waking up. I'm coming back to life. And I was like, it's a process that I'm going through. I was like, just let the process do its thing. And then as I started to really get my momentum back, I noticed the grieving kicked in around December. And then when we got into this new year, where I'm at today is more my authority is showing up. But I'm still noticing three different things that I process every single day. The grieving's dialed back, and the grieving, when it hit, man, it really knocked me sideways. I'd never felt that before. Um, I have never had my heart feel so broken as it did seeing my mother like that, gone with the light out of her. It was not fun. But what I'm like yesterday, for instance, I'm going back and forth between my heart and my anger. I have some anger that's coming up, and I'm angry at myself for quitting on myself 30 years ago
Mm.
on stuff between my mom and I. I'm not really mad at her for robbing me. I'm mad because I quit. I could have never replaced a lot of the stuff that she stole, but I could have done something about it that gave me my life back instead of pivoting and going down a different path that wasn't as true for me, which explains why things haven't been as great during those 30 years because it wasn't what I was truly supposed to be doing. I wasn't following my heart. I was
Mm.
running from her and all these people that were sabotaging me. And so what I battle every day, and it's dying, every choice that I make that comes from my heart that blows something magical into my life, my ego wants to come in and go, yeah, but what about this? What
Mm.
about that? And it's all of it is unfinished business with me. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And I know that as I keep more focused on my heart and just, I need, unfortunately, my ego needs proof, and I can't escape my ego. I don't give power to my ego to prove anything to anybody, but I know that as things continue to come back to me, my ego is going to shut up because it's only flared up from time to time because I'm not where I want to be. And
Yeah.
I'm just mad at myself. But I do battle a little bit of those pendulum swings. It's not real rough as it used to be, but when the anger sits on me, I feel it. And it's an anger I've never felt before. And
Yeah.
it's something it's directly connected to my whole life with a mother and an addiction and
Mm.
how I quit on myself to survive the environment just to let so that I didn't flare her up. And now that she's not here anymore to be flared up, I'm coming to terms with all of it. And absolutely in the next year, this thing is going to blow wide open what I'm creating and where I'm going. I can see it, I can taste it. And when I'm in the right mindset, I can feel it. And that is what lights me up.
And what, if there's anything at all, is there anything that hasn't really had the space to be expressed through you yet?
I would say my love relationship,
Oh,
I think, is probably the most predominant one because I'm not ready to take on another relationship. I'm not in the right place to serve that relationship. But I really want to feel that connection of love
yeah,
with somebody. Like I really, really desire it. And that's what my ex took advantage of through me because she picked up on the fact that I want to love somebody like completely, authentically, unconditionally. And I'm looking for someone who will reflect that.
yeah.
And she took advantage of that.
And it's
So
hard, right, to find that kind of love when you just now became the person that you were supposed to be. And so isn't that funny to acknowledge that the desire that you have lives there, right? The desire to love and be loved, it's there. The desire to create and be in that space is there. And it's not necessarily that you can't have those things, but you have to be a match for those things.
yes, and what I'm doing just to give everyone some scope, the value that I've really been sitting in. Once I have my vision, once I know where I'm going, the value that my ego hates, because my ego gets so impatient. But the value I'm living in is let the game come to me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That's
and I
that's so magnetic, right? Like it's so magnetic where it's like I always think of it like this. It's like every morning you wake up and you polish off your field, yourself, and make it so clean that literally anything you desire can just it's just drawn to you. It just
Mhm.
comes into your field in a minute. That's you let the game come to you. Yeah, I love that. So
I
what
learned that.
do you feel
Oh,
pulled towards right now?
what am I being pulled towards?
Yeah.
Crowds of people, which is weird because for 20 some, 30 some years, I worked in the entertainment industry and I worked a lot of concerts. But I'm being drawn toward crowds of people. I'm being really drawn to nature and I'm being really drawn to sitting with myself, dialoguing with my inner self, my heart. And I've been drawn to expressing to my inner core, meaning my people, my real people that have access to my jugular, as I like to say. I've been going out of my way of expressing how much I love them without holding back. I'm
Yeah.
not holding back anymore. I think part of it contributes to the fact I just turned 49 years old and I'm about to hit 50. And I was always told as you get closer to 50, you start to realize what's important and like you really begin to create what's true because you get out of the way. And I can honestly contest that that is true. I
Yeah.
don't care. I'm not going to resolve people's tension anymore. I'm not going to walk on eggshells anymore. I'm also not going to be rude. I'm very aware of who I am in the moment, but I'm not going to be that people pleaser I used to be. And I'm not going to push away my needs anymore to make other people happy. it's over.
Gorgeous. It's
And
gorgeous. What do you think is asking more of you in your life? Like in the external world, what's asking more of you?
that's a really good question. What's asking more of me? Um, I noticed my family wants more from me. Like I noticed, like my aunt pulled me aside the other day and was telling me, and my sister doesn't express emotions very well. And my sister told my aunt, she's like, it's really nice having Stan around. He's a different energy than the rest of the family. Like they genuinely just enjoy being around me because I love them unconditionally. There's no conditions, and my sister lives in a conditional world. I love my sister. No offense to her. I'm not trying to air her dirty laundry out, but she's in a marriage that's very conditional,
Yeah.
and I don't live that way. And I think the reason she notices and wants more of it is because she doesn't receive unconditional love even from her own husband.
Yeah.
And no offense to them, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And I've actually had to put a boundary on them because their toxic behavior was getting in the way of my life, and I put a boundary on them, and she doesn't like that. And so now she wants more time with me because she's been moved out away from the layer of me on some level, not to protect myself, but because she sets me up for me to be irritated because she'll hit me with the wrong energy and context. She's manipulated me pretty hardcore, in all honesty, in the last couple of years because that's her mo. A lot like my mother, and the boundaries that I've set, it doesn't allow it to happen, and we're having a better relationship because of it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
she wants more of it because she loves it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and that's isn't that ironic, right? Is that being able to realize that the boundaries that we put in place are meant to protect our sovereignty, right? And when we acknowledge, when we're real with ourselves, when we become the observer of these things, we can say, "Oh, this is where I was leaking energy. Oh, this is where I was leaking energy." And so, um, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes when we become that observer and you have the ability, like you do, to speak on what the observer sees through you so well, that sometimes it's really easy for people to label you as like, oh, you're the asshole, you're this, you're calling me on my shit. When in all reality, it's like, no, I'm identifying patterns that have kept me and you stuck. And I love you and us so much
yeah.
that I want to speak on these things.
Well, I can give you a specific example of what I'm talking about, especially for your audience to understand what this means. I was house sitting for a friend of mine over by where my sister lives on the other side of Orlando. They live on the east side of town. I live more on the west side of town. And anyway, I made arrangements to go by and just hang out with her. You know, I had a vision. I had something I wanted to experience. She was there at the house by herself. Everybody else was gone. The kids were gone. He was gone. And as soon as I got there, I wasn't there 10 minutes, and she just dumps her anger of him out onto the table and starts nailing me with this ridiculousness. Like she was robbing the moment. She was so neurotic that it was setting the pace to the point that I didn't even want to be in the room because I don't want to hear it. I set a boundary on her a long time ago because she doesn't want to talk about it in a way that's constructive to do something that serves the situation. She just wants to complain about it and then go right back and do the same thing again. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be around people like that because I'm not going to waste my energy or insight knowing that you're not even going to listen or do anything with it. And with me being a coach, she's asking for my insight, but I realize she doesn't want my insight because she's going to do something with it. She just wants to feel better. She's manipulating me. She's robbing me. And I've known it for a while, and I've been slowly putting boundaries on it, and it makes it harder for her to get away with it. But when I was right in the middle of her living room and she started doing this, I took a step back and was like, I have to cut the energy to this. She is sucking the energy out of me and out of the room. And I went into the bathroom and I sat there for a minute and was like, how am I going to handle this? Because I'm getting really irritated. She's setting the pace. And I was like, you have to tell her how you really feel. It's enough is enough. And her husband works in IT, and he's got cameras all over the house. And I know he's collecting this data. I know he's sitting there watching this stuff. And so I came out of the bathroom and I just told her, I was like, I'm not having this conversation with you again, Jenny. I was like, I love you. I was like, but it is a complete waste of time to have this conversation. This isn't what I came over here for. I'm not your therapist. You don't go to therapy. You refuse to get help. And all this is a drop in the bucket for me. And all you're going to do is just complain and complain and complain and complain until I don't want to be here anymore. And I was like, it would be different if you were doing something about it. And I said, and let me say another thing. I was like, that camera right there is recording all of this and you're a lawyer. I was like, you are sitting here blasting him right now. And then to his face, you're acting like his best friend. I know he's watching this. He has to be. And I turned to the camera and said something to him too. And I said, and you, I was like, you are part of the problem too. I said, both of you don't have shared vision. Both of you don't use your values. Both of you are wasting everyone's time listening to this. You've been dealing with this for over 30 years now. I don't want to hear it unless you're really going to do something about it, or I'm out of here.
Yeah. Oh, so one of the first times you and I sat down and I was like, I want to know this man's energy. And I'm into human design and energy is my first language. So when I hear people speak and when I heard you speak, I was like, man, whenever you tell me a story, it activates me. Like I can feel the energy like being initiated in me. So when I learned that you're a manifester, I was like, oh, that's what it is. He's coming in and he's like, no, I am the captain of this ship and I
Well,
determine where
it's two
we're
things. It's two things because I am a manifester. I've always had a big compassionate heart. I used to get picked on growing up because I was one of the sensitive ones. I'm one of these sensitive folk walking around the world, and I didn't understand my emotions because I get so upset about everything. Or I feel everything. I feel everything in the room.
you're
I'm
very you're very open.
and I had to learn my own boundary setting, but the biggest thing I had to learn was how to have control over my emotions, both so I could be compassionate but authoritative, because I either went from being really happy or really angry, really
Mm,
happy or really angry. Because I learned after my mother, or during the process of my mother dying, I learned that what makes me really angry is when I assume that I'm being manipulated by somebody, because that's what she did to me. And
mm.
so learning that manipulation is what triggers me, I have learned to keep my energy pulled back because I am in control over myself. And I'm not always perfect. I do make mistakes, but learning how to be compassionate, control what's inward and not let anybody through, which is my empathy and having control over my empathy. Being compassionate allows me to window shop without going into the store.
I love that.
So I can sit there and have that conversation. They can't get away with the manipulation because they're not getting in. And if they start to, that's when I either exit
Stage left.
or because I don't want to run from it, but I do find a way to leave when I know my time is up, that I've
Right.
done what I can energetically. So I'm not quitting on anybody. I'm just pulling my energy back and leaving
Yeah.
because I've done what I came here to do. And
Yeah.
anymore is just a waste of energy. So learning compassion and then also being direct but compassionate, but also the authority does come from anger. That's where authority lives. But if you're overly angry, you're a manipulator to yourself and everyone around you. And I don't want to live like that. I don't
Well,
want to follow what they did.
as a manifestor, your not self theme is anger. So that anger
Mm-mm.
is there's always gonna be that level, right? For that energy type, that anger is like what fuels you guys. And like for me as a projector, it's bitterness. Like there's always going to be
Mm.
a part in a conversation where I'm gonna feel that like that underlying frequency of being bitter and that little part of me that's like, well, ask me what I think. And where with you, it's like, no, you are clearly not using what I'm saying. Therefore, I'm not saying it anymore. And I love the metacognition that has been developed in you that you realize this is what drains me. This is what fuels me. This is what powers me. And I think it's so beautiful how aware that you are of that process. And
Yeah.
so now say that to lead us into the next question. Where does life feel so easy and in flow for you right now?
So I'm seeing flow in a bunch of areas, but I have to be honest, like the one place where it's really flowing for me is there's so much energy for me to return to live performance, not just DJing, because I'm a real big fan of EDM house music. Like I love it. But there's so much energy in having no unfinished business for myself. There's a few things I have to do right now, and I've been visualizing this street performance, and there's so much authority behind it because I'm channeling that anger right into my vision. So it's like dumping gas onto love, right? It's like my love is a flame, and I just dumped the bullshit and the wood that's dead onto it, and it lights me up, right? And I'll sit there and be like, all right, I want to really step into this vision and move it, but I can't go do a street festival, but I can live a certain experience of it. So what I've been doing almost every day, I carve out about an hour for me to sit down, and I have my playlist, my music and everything, including the stuff I'm creating, and I'll pop it in and I'll give myself an hour of a set where I go through, but I'm visualizing. I'm not just playing music and feeling it. I actually visualize the whole street performance in my mind while I'm doing it. And I'm carving out a beginning, middle, and end while still being loose to what happens that day because I'll feed off the crowd and make it up in real time. I'm not just going to go in and force the music. I'm going to have a light, loose structure, but at the same time, I'm carving it out. So I'll go in and start doing it and live it. And I was like, oh, I can feel, I'm manifesting it right now. I can feel it pulling toward me. I can feel it coming at me. And yesterday I sat down and because I needed a new hour-long set because I've got a venue over in Sanford, Florida that's interested in talking to me. And I was like, I need to give a fresh update as to what it would sound like if I came in and did something or what my style looks like. So I sat down and for like an hour, I just let it rip because I've been visioning it and executing it so much. I was in such a flow of creativity. When it was done and I listened to it, I was like, I can't find one mistake in this. And I wasn't trying to force it. I just let it happen
Yeah.
because as a manifest, as someone who loves to manifest, the trick is almost like you want to vision it 75% of the time and then execute it 25% of the time.
Mm.
And
Okay.
what I see people doing is they will get a glimpse of a vision and then they go into reaction around it and then they start hacking away at it
Yeah.
when they don't really know what they're doing. They just feel something, they get an impulse and they have to move on it, and then they don't really create the thing they want. It doesn't really work out. And it's because they don't really know what it is. They're problem solving and
Right.
hacking away at something instead of really being clear on what it is that they want. And I'm so clear on this, I can feel it. I can feel it run through my whole body. What's about to happen? I've already experienced it 100 times already, and
Yeah.
so that flows through me quite a bit. The other thing I'm focused on now is my health. I've been really focused on. I visualize my healthiest version of myself, and my energy level has just gone through the roof. The more I visualize and see myself as this authoritative but compassionate, loving person who doesn't hold back anymore, I'm just not going to hold back anymore of who I really am, and I love who I am, and I love this energy in me that was always. There were so many people growing up that would try to squash it because they didn't like it, and it's because they didn't like my light, and I'm not going to let that happen this time. And
Yeah.
so I'm part of getting up and visualizing and working, working my stuff is I get up and I run and I'm working out and I can see it happening more and more. And I need that. I need to be able to sustain the 4 hour or 3 hour event we're about to do. And I know that I don't have that full stamina. So I'm highly focused on that in my vision. So when that day hits, I can sustain setting up for 3 hours of lights and sound and then do the show and then spend another hour or two breaking down because it's going to be at least a 10-hour day to pull that event off. And to sustain that kind of energy, I am hyper focused on it. And it's just really flowing for me in those two areas.
Is there anything that feels like you're still pushing?
At times,
What,
at
what?
times, it's what I've been struggling with in my business. There's these markers, if I look back, where the business drops off. And I've been listening to the universe on some level because I've been trying to move back to Atlanta was my end game to go back because I'm a union actor. And I was going to move back there and stick my whole business right in the middle of Atlanta because it's such an entertainment hub. But every time I put pieces in place to go leave, something else breaks away that has nothing to do with me. And I noticed it when the election happened. And I noticed it again at the beginning of the year. And at the beginning of the year, I had one of the biggest chunks of business drop away that I've never experienced before, and half my income disappeared.
Ooh,
And the pain and resistance that it caused, because I've never experienced that before, I haven't felt that um, since well, when I was living in Los Angeles, when we did that big economic shift from the Bush administration into the Obama administration, the same thing happened then, but I lost like 80% of my income then because there was nothing anybody could do about it. It was done. I was homeless in Los Angeles. I was actually living in my car when that happened and was homeless for about 3 months until I could put the pieces back. It was either live out of my car or move home, with what money I had left. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna stay and make it work. And then this time around, when I lost half the income, when I was looking at it, I'm really irritated with what's happening in the world, and I'm really irritated with the way we're doing things. Um, and I have to be careful not to give too much energy and power over to that.
Yeah.
It's something I'm seeing the world is doing is we're giving our energy over to the wrong group of people way too much because of what's happening outside of us. And I can't get away from it.
Right.
It's like somebody will bring it up, or you see it in the news, you open up social media. You cannot get away from this suffering energy of what, and I'm not going to go into the political aspect of it because it just gets weird. And I'm not going to give any more energy to what's going on in these people any more than I already do. But um, I've had to learn to set boundaries and learn to not take it personal. And when I do that, I'm handing over my energy to people that don't deserve it.
So
Um,
I want to ask you, right, talking about this energy and handing it over, and I'm going to close my eyes for a moment because I want to kind of go deeper into this like shadow play,
okay.
right? And I want to ask you, when you go deep into those parts of your being, right, is there
Mhm.
anything in there that you're avoiding? Is there something that you're like, yeah, I know that this exists, but I'm just, not this season or not there, or, is there anything in there that you feel
Yeah.
is coming up?
Yeah, there is. The first place I notice it is to love somebody, like a love interest, right? That's probably the main thing. Because I don't feel like I'm quite where I need to be, in my life, the stability around it, especially losing half my income. And even though I do identify as a man that provides, it's conditioned so much in our society that if a man isn't making a certain amount of money, no matter the situation, they're just you're a waste of time to people. And I am not going to sit there and sift through 80% of the female opportunities that are in the world, especially when almost every one of them has asked me, "What do you do for a living?" And I know what that question means. But that's the first question you ask me. I know what that means. Can he take care of me? Is he make enough money? Is he a loser? And we live in such a society for thousands and thousands of years where men are supposed to provide, shelter, food, money, those kind of things, and you're never going to get away from it. Even though there's people that are women that are better about it, men that are better about it, based on the type of relationship it is. There are people out there that don't care and they're supportive. They're hard to find. And until I have everything in place that for me to be comfortable, I don't think it's wise to open up doors while you're trying to figure those things out because I've made those mistakes before.
Yeah.
But I do really desire that type of level of intimacy. But I got to be honest, I'm scared to death to open up that door right now.
Yeah.
Very resistant because I don't want my heart broken again because I'm not providing enough. And that's what my ex was trying to paint a picture. I told her, I was like, you knew the situation. You knew my mother's dying. You knew I came back because we met during the pandemic. We were both in the same boat. And then I realized in her selfishness, I was like, she just wants me to fix her problems. And I'm like, I'm trying to fix my own. And there was no support for either one of us. And I'm supporting her emotionally and time, but I wasn't getting the reciprocal back when I started. And it wasn't like that the first 2 years. And then it started to shift as we got closer to the 3 year mark. And I was like, look, I'm doing the best I can. And I'm not going to go pivot into some other career to make you happy. I'm not doing that. Like, you have to accept me for who I am and what my mission is and what I'm trying to get done. And if you can't do that, you're not the right fit for me. And I
Yeah.
told her that. I was like, let's just end this amicably if you feel that way, but be honest with me. And I had said that to her probably about 6 months before the split. Um, but I was like, after it was all over, I know that I contracted for that. And I said to myself, I was like, I might meet somebody. I might be open to that. That might happen. You're not always in control. You can't be perfect. And I was like, let's just let the world happen. But I'm very resistant to that right now because I'm not really where I want to be.
I want to ask you, do you feel that that fear, that deep-rooted fear of being manipulated, or,
Hmm.
like, do you feel like that's what's driving you to be like, I have zero interest to explore this right now? Like, I know that it's something that I desire, but I need to have all of my pieces together, all my ducks in a row before I do that because of that fear.
Yes, because she tried to take me out on the way out. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, she did everything she could to try to take me out. Because I hate to say this, I don't know any other way to put it. I feel on some level she got off on it by having control, knowing that there was control, because she could see something and how I'm supposed to show up. And I'm not afraid to have these conversations, obviously. And I would have these conversations with her because I would move the energy and stay in my power. And
Yeah.
the more I was learning how to do that, the more angry she got because she didn't have control. And so what I'm petrified of, because this isn't the first relationship that's happened. I have contracted this 3 times now of
Okay.
this
Well,
type of person treating me that way.
over. Lessons learned.
Well, yeah, and I am done contracting for that, and I've learned how that's happened, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. Even though I might clean up my approach and clean up things, doesn't mean that I'm not going to irritate somebody because they have a hidden agenda because they can't be transparent and honest with me right from the very start. And so my whole vetting process has changed because what I'm doing differently, and this goes back to what I said earlier, I'm not chasing after another relationship. That's part of it because I'm begging to be loved. I'm
Name
trying
some.
to fulfill that unconditional love that my mother couldn't give us. I've been begging for it since I was a kid because I had a mother that couldn't love us unconditionally. It was always conditional, which makes sense why I end up in 3 relationships with women that are conditional, even though I'm an unconditional person because I don't have boundaries. And as I've been putting boundaries in place and setting the pieces in that, um, what's happened is I'm letting the game come to me instead. I'm not going, I'm here and waiting because this time around, instead of me going and talking to that girl or talking to that girl and seeing if something happens and then something does, I'm not doing that this time. I'm going to let her show up to my house instead of me chasing somebody down. I'm just going to let them come to me,
Yeah.
whoever this person is. I'm done. And I know that it will show up when it's supposed to because this person will be my best friend. This person will be somebody who truly understands me. This will be somebody who has more alignment to my values, especially now that I know who I am.
Yeah.
I will see it. I will see the energetic connection. And in some ways, I think I've already seen it. I just will see because I see it. I see it in a few people, a few women that I've met. I can see it, but I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to be needy. I'm just going to let it happen on its own. I'm going to let the game come to me.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what that looks like for you, right? As we've talked through all of this, what's becoming more clear for you?
I'm a powerful person.
Ain't that the damn truth? Has anything shifted by just saying it out loud?
Nothing that hasn't already been there that I'm seeing more. I think what's happening is I'm believing it
Yeah,
in a way that I've never believed it before. And I think as the proof continues to come in, because I'm right at the beginning of living my second life. That's the best way I could describe this to anybody listening to this is that when my mother died and left, that was the end of an era of me protecting myself from someone who was a very I love my mom, but she did a lot of damage to us and to herself. And when she died, what the reason it was so weird for me is because I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't recognize this. And when I have a coach and when I sat with him after she had died, it was like a month after she died, he asked me, he's like, how are you doing? And I said, it's weird, man. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I feel like I'm living a second life.
yeah,
And he's like, describe it to me. And I said, well, have you ever seen the movie The Natural? Is what I asked him. The movie The Natural with Robert Redford. There's a scene right before the climax of the movie, about 3/4 of the way in. He's sitting with his high school girlfriend who they reconnected. I think they're in Chicago in the scene, and it's I'm trying to think of her name, Meryl Streep, and they're sitting down together, and he's kind of a victim in that moment if you watch him and watch what he's saying because she's like, what happened, Roy? Like, it's many years after high school. They were like friends in the same neighborhood, this where he grew up in these farmland area of the United States. And he's like, I made some bad choices, is what he's saying. And he's like, and I paid the price for it. And she looks at him and gives one of the best lines in that movie. She said, Roy, there's the life we learn from, and the life we get to live after that.
Wow.
And that is what it feels like for me. I feel like I am living the life that I've denied myself, but I've also realized that this is the human condition. We all go through this. We are all going through the same thing, and there's a structure that I see that I've never seen before, and I can clearly see it. This is just what I have to go through because this is what I came here to do. And I have to go do these things to be complete with myself before I go because this is where it's going to get done in my second life. This is it.
So what if somebody's listening to you today and they are where you've been? What would you say to them?
Don't quit on yourself
Yeah, keep
because it's
going.
easy to want to quit on yourself, and I did, which is the anger I have. Is because I'm like, damn, if I hadn't quit there, if I quit there, if I quit there, my life would be a lot different.
Yeah.
It'd
So
be a
what
lot different.
is that through every trial and every tribulation that you have ever experienced, it has brought you into this space where you're in right now of this becoming, of this second opportunity, of this new life, of this person that you've always known yourself to be. And it feels like it's just the beginning where now you get to experience that part, love in that space, wealth in that space, you know, all of this crowd and all of these things. And I am honored to be able to witness you in this. This is great.
I've thoroughly enjoyed meeting you through this process of my life because I met you how many years ago now? A couple of years ago. It's been
Yeah,
like
like
two years maybe.
yeah.
And you're one of the first people I met when I came back to Central Florida because I left Central Florida 30 years ago to avoid all this. And I met my coach that helped me confront my mother because he was a recovered opioid addict. And I told him when we knew I was coming back to Central Florida because of the pandemic, and I said, "Well, I was like, we're gonna see how well this coaching, is gonna look like, And
Gonna
he's
see
like,
how
"What do
good
you?"
you are, coach.
And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I'm going back into the lion's den." I was like, I know we've done a lot of work and healing. I was like, but you do realize I'm going right in the middle of it now, and I don't like that. And and he goes, I don't blame you because you heal when you leave the environment, that caused the pain. He's like, but your mother's about to enter her final stage if she's not already in it, and you have to confront some of this.
Yeah,
He's like, if she dies and you don't confront this, he's like, you're gonna have all this unfinished business and you're gonna be really, really angry. And so when I came home, I met my ex, and you can see where that went. But then I met you, and you were one of the first people, if not the first, that had a similar light that I saw in myself. And I trust me, I recognized it, and I've only seen it on a few people living in Florida. No offense to Florida, but there's not a lot of people walking around that isn't thinking like a muggle, is the way I like to put it. There's a lot of muggles running around Central Florida in particular, and it makes a lot of sense. Just come hang out. um, Florida is definitely labeled Florida for a reason, and I find it very difficult at times to walk through the world because of the torment I see people going through and my own intuition and my empathy. And you were one of the first people that I felt had a similar light to me, and it's been a refresh. It's been very refreshing to have conversations with you.
well,
So,
I am so excited for this, and I'm grateful that we get to hear and witness you on this. And so, for all of you guys watching, thank you so much. This is Rooted in Reality. I am Nicole Marie, and you had the pleasure of listening to Stanley Fisher. And just don't quit. Don't quit.
well, I'm quite.
All right.